pleasure to have you here. We are live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, around the world at myjoyonline.com. The details now. The Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service says is still conducting investigations to find persons behind the shooting at the Techiman South Collation Center, which left 2 persons dead. At a press conference on violence during election 2020, Director General COP Isaac Kenyeboah stated 8 persons were injured after some NDC supporters allegedly started attacking people who had gathered for collation.
Some of the supporters boarded vehicles and drove in the streets towards the direction of Mudak Hotel at Kotoko. Some people who were not happy with the development fired weapons from a distance into the crowd and injured Dompre Emmanuel, 36 years, Botre Taki, 16. They were rushed to Kolebu Teaching Hospital for treatment, but they were pronounced dead on arrival. 6 other victims were hit by the pellets from the weapons. They were also rushed to the same hospital for treatment. The Accra Regional Police Patrol teams rushed to the scene and then retrieved pistol with 13 rounds of ammunition, Smith & Wesson pistol with 9 rounds of ammunition, 80 rounds of ammunition, 1 pump action gun with 20 rounds of BB ammunition cartridges, live cartridges, 6 pepper sprays, flashlight, machete, 4 jackknives, and then 3 Boafeng handset, and then 1,000 CDs, 2 kitchen knives, and 1 ballistic vest at the scene. That was where the shooting came from. A Toyota Tundra vehicle with registration number GS 7610-12 belonging to the MPP was vandalized by the supporters of the NDC. 5 suspects, including Godfrey alias Wadada, Emmanuel Goina, Reverend Esinam Robert Ofofo, Malco, and Bruno, were identified to have shot into the crowd and were arrested. They were arraigned before a Jabin District Court on charges of murder, contrary to Section 46 of Act 29, possession of firearms and ammunition without lawful authority. They were remanded into police custody, and the case has been adjourned to 21st of December. After that incident, 32 other suspects were also arrested, charged, and arraigned before the same court for causing unlawful damage to vehicle number GS 7610-12. They pleaded not guilty and were granted court bail. The case has also been adjourned to 3rd February 2021. Efforts are being made to arrest suspect Bruno, who is currently on the run. Then there was another shooting incident at Blekuma, Central Constituency, Collation Center. On the 8th of December 2020, as collation of results was ongoing at Blekuma Central Constituency Collation Center, misunderstanding ensued between the party agents of both NDC and MPP. Suspect Collins Kwaku, who claimed to be a personnel of the National Security, came from nowhere to the Collation Center, and after having a brief discussion with the Member of Parliament for Ablekuma Central Constituency, Honorable Ebenezer Gilbert Ni Nana T, who was standing at a distance. The accused got closer to the collation center and fired shots indiscriminately into the crowd, and the bullet hit the left knee of Police Inspector Nixon Awini, who was on duty at the collation center. He also shot at a journalist and hit his left ankle. Rashid Umar was also shot at, and the bullet hit his right knee and left shin. The victims, Nixon Awini, Rashid Umar, were rushed to Kolebu Teaching Hospital, whilst victim Pius Esiedu Kwanim, that's the journalist, was also rushed to Greater Accra Regional Hospital, where they were admitted for treatment.
Away from that, lawyer and MP-elect for Medina, Francis Xavier Susu, says steps are being taken by the NDC to ensure that protesters act within the confines of the law. This comes after police put some 32 people before court for unlawful protest at the EC headquarters on Thursday. Lawyer Susu is representing those who were arrested. He spoke with me earlier this morning.
We are looking forward to applying for bail for them. Particularly the offense being charged being bailable offense. The number of them that sustained various degrees of injuries yesterday as a result of some assault during the arrest. So we are just hoping that the court will be magnanimous and admit them to bail, which is also their constitutional right. Then we can, at the appropriate time, inquire into the matter. As a very responsible political party, all steps are being taken to calm our ranks so that if anyone wants to embark on any such action, you can give the police notice in accordance with the Public Order Act, and also encouraging everyone to be very peaceful and protest. Protesting is a constitutional right, but we also understand that those constitutional rights are limited by the Public Order Act, just to make sure that you don't also endanger other people. We understand this position of the law, and we are advising our rank and file to make sure that whatever they do must be within the limits of the law. Everyone can protest if you want to, but let's give police a notice. And also, when you are on a protest, let's ensure that they are peaceful. If you look at the people who are being arraigned before the court today, a lot of them walk into this protest really not knowing that they have been noticed or they have not been noticed. And
okay.
You cannot charge this innocent people, most of them who you can describe as involuntary agents. And you know what? A lot of the guys who were really misbehaving on this protest, trying to bend ties and other things, none of them is here today. These are some of them have been bystanders. Some of them are people who are walking by and who have all been arrested, about 30 of them.
The lawyer also said these people are not necessarily members of their party. At least they haven't confirmed that yet, and they're only representing them because they were fighting the party's cause. Now, the minority in Parliament is warning of acrimonious relationship with the governing MPP in the 8th Parliament due to be inaugurated next month. Results from the 2020 parliamentary elections gave the NDC and MPP 137 seats each, and one is occupied by an independent candidate. The situation leaves the 8th Parliament without a clear majority, but the NDC is now pushing for recollation of the Techiman South's results, warning it will be the only way the NPP side can get their support in the next Parliament. We'll hear from the minority leader on this shortly. First, head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, with a detailed report as dispute over the Senate West seat was resolved on Thursday.
The Senate West parliamentary elections was on a knife's edge till the very end. The election process itself was full of drama. It came down to the contents of one ballot box that was snatched by an assailant who was later caught, prosecuted and jailed. The MPP has used the ballot box snatching as a basis to challenge the election at the High Court, but they lost. At the final count yesterday, the MPP's candidate secured 13,100 votes against the NDC's 13,116 votes. The NDC's candidate, an incumbent MP, Kwame Chumesi Ampofo, won with just 16 votes.
So far as we win. So every win is a win. Despite that the vote is so close, 16 margin, doesn't mean that NDC is going to lose the election next year. We are going to beef up.
The MPP MP for Okre, Dan Boche, who led the party's delegation to monitor the collation of results, had demanded a recollation after it became obvious that the party had lost by the slimmest of margins. But in the end, Mr. Boche said the outcome was fair.
Most different. There's a justification to want to do collation and recollation to satisfy yourself.
You satisfied?
Oh yes.
With the Senate West parliamentary contest now over, the picture in the next parliament is clearer. The MPP and the NDC will both have 137 seats. There will be one independent MP who has indicated he will vote with the MPP side. Ghana's parliament is, for the first time in the Fourth Republic, hung. No party has a majority. The first battle in this hung parliament is set to play out when the House decides who becomes the next speaker. Both parties will have an equal say. It will come down to the vote of the independent candidate.
Head of our political desk with that report. And as we head for a potential hung parliament, the minority NDC says it believes it won the Techiman South seats and is demanding recollation before building any consensus with the NPP side.
How come that there can be recollation and coalition in Senate West and there cannot be a recollation in Techiman South? So even if you are urging NDC to go to court to question what? When simply they cannot even make available to the NDC an outcome of a declared result of an election officer. Collate and recollate Techiman South prior to the swearing in of who eventually is declared president of Ghana. Without it, the party will advise itself. I know that compromises will be important. It's early yet, but the MPP know that they lost an election. A ruling government struggling for one seat desperately.
Now, the Executive Director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rashid Dramani, says a hung parliament is rare. Speaking to Mama Owusu-Aboagye on the AM show, Dr. Dramani said the incoming parliament presents constitutional challenges in determining the majority and minority, and this, he says, necessitates some interpretation of the Constitution and the House's standing orders.
I don't know who to call majority leader, and I don't know who to call minority leader if the seats remain this way. I mean, except to say that, you know, if it is true that the kingmaker, if I could call him that way, the former MP, if it is true that he is going to be joining and voting with the MPP, then at least they have a one-seat majority when it comes to voting, but not when it comes to seats. Because once he says that he's MPP, then that same kind of situation that befell him before we went to vote, that is when he was expelled from Parliament. I think that article will be triggered again, and then he will lose his seat. So for now, he would, I mean, based on what we have read in the media, he says he'll be voting and sitting with the MPP. So in that case, they have a one-person majority. I don't know what that means constitutionally. I don't know what that means based on the law.
In parliaments, per their own standing orders, there's a minority side and there is a majority side. There wasn't room for what we are experiencing today.
Yes, indeed. I think the premise of our constitution, again, that's what I'm saying. Perhaps the lawyers would have to look at the constitution carefully. Sometimes there are some hidden clauses, and then sometimes maybe some different interpretations. But I think our premise of the Constitution did not foresee this, and even perhaps I'm yet to carefully look at the standing orders, but I have seen a situation where in some countries, for instance, recently we were doing some work in Sierra Leone, and looking at their standing orders, they went to elections recently, and all of a sudden there were so many parties in parliament, and then they don't have a coalition. So you talk to some of the smaller parties, they say, no, these standing orders are not, meant for this kind of parliament. They were meant for a parliament where there was a clear majority and minority, because now we don't know what to call ourselves. We the smaller parties. And I think if you look at our situation right now, we might be facing the same thing. When you look at the Constitution, as well as when you look at the standing orders, the Bible of our Parliament.
Away from Parliament, some members of the Asokore Mampo Municipal Assembly are alleged to have been assaulted by some thugs in MPP-branded clothing. They say the men numbering about 15 who were around the assembly stormed their meeting after they had inquired of some street lights said to have been brought in by the Ministry of Energy. Nanaya Aljuma is following up on this story and joins me via phone. Give us more details about what transpired, Nanaya.
So the information we have is that yesterday, as the meeting of the assembly went on, a matter about some street lights that were distributed by the Ministry of Energy to the assembly came up, and these are street lights that some of the assembly members before the last meeting had been asking about after some of their members or some members of the assembly received some of these lights for their areas. According to the assembly members, after the inquiry they made before now, it came up that the NPP as a party brought these street lights and distributed to the assembly members they preferred. So they had to put the matter to rest. But yesterday when the matter came up at the assembly meeting and they realized that these lights actually came from the Ministry of Energy, they decided to question or find further information about these street lights. And this made some of the people in the meeting very angry, and some came in and assaulted some of these people who were raising objections. It took police intervention to stop this assault that went on in the meeting. The information we are having is that some of these people who went to allegedly assault some of these assembly members have been arrested. Police is yet to give us number of people they've arrested in connection with this incident.
We'll leave it here. Nanaya Aljuma there, Love FM reporter, bringing us details of that. Now, President of the National House of Chiefs says numerous demonstrations over the election results have the potential of eroding the country's democratic gains. This comes after a series of protests by the National Democratic Congress across the country, and this is in contestation of the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. President of the House, Ojiahoho Yaojebi II, noted the ongoing protests have heightened tension in the country. Nanaya Aljuma spoke to him.
The House of Chiefs, in a statement, acknowledged the smooth running of the 2020 general elections, emphasizing the country continues to mature in democracy. Though the House describes the process as smooth, it will not disregard the objections raised by the NDC. Ojiahoho Yaojebi is entreating persons dissatisfied with the election results to seek redress by using laid-down processes and procedure rather than street protests.
Elections all over the world have never been perfect. But then we live in a world of compromises. So we are asking them to compromise and then especially speak to their followers and calm down on the demonstrations and in some cases destruction of property.
Do you think that there is heightened tension in the country?
Otherwise, we will not issue this statement. Because if some people are aggrieved and they are not shouting for nothing, they know what probably they have seen, So we are approaching them to speak to them to calm down.
The House says efforts are in place to liaise with stakeholders in the election to find means to end the impasse.
The end of the statement was that, quite apart from the advice this House has given to them, we are also working with other stakeholders and, if possible, to meet the leadership of the political parties and find common ground for understanding and for calm to prevail in the country.
For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
Now, some news we're just receiving is that all the persons who were arrested for protesting around the EC's headquarters on Thursday have been granted bail, and the case has been adjourned to January 25, 2021. Now, Parliament will later today pass the first ever private members' bill to introduce severe sanctions against road traffic offenders. It will be the first time in history the House is passing a bill into law that's not been sponsored by the executive arm of government. Joseph Abokobi joins us with more. Hello, Joseph. Tell us more about this bill.
So this is a bill to actually amend the Road Traffic Act 2004, and this will end up prescribing various sanctions that constitute acts that constitute dangerous driving that result in the injury or death of an unborn baby, or dangerous cycling that results in the
Too bad we're having challenges with that line of Joseph's. We'll try and reach him again, but he was just telling us more about that private members' bill, which is expected to be passed later today. And this is history because it's the first time ever. He was just giving us details of that bill. While we'll wait for his line to get better, four-time Member of Parliament for Anglo, Clement Kofi Humado, says it's time government initiated moves to amend the constitutional provision that requires the president to nominate 50% of his ministers from Parliament. According to the MP, that provision no longer serves the interest of the country. His comments come on the back of the 2020 parliamentary elections, which have created the potential hung parliament. Mr. Humado spoke to my colleague Enes Menu in a yet-to-be-aired edition of The Exit on the JoyNews channel.
That day I woke up and I was just thinking, all over the place. And this was one of the things that came to my mind, that, in Parliament, because some of us have been ministers or are ministers, it puts a lot of pressure on our work. Sometimes, to the extent that you can be a minister, when it comes to general elections, they'll throw you out because you didn't have time for your constituents. And I am beginning to feel that we should de-emphasize that a bit. Maybe move the percentage from 50% to, say, 30%, so as to give more time to parliamentarians to work and also to start achieving the separation of powers, You're
not saying this because you are leaving the House? No, I'm not saying this because you're a beneficiary of this system.
No, I think even among our colleagues, I'm sure that kind of thinking, and also the civil society, they say it sometimes, that why don't we, look, in countries like Sierra Leone, there is no provision for members of parliament to become ministers. In Liberia, the same thing. In Nigeria, it's the same thing. It's only in Ghana that we seem to be the odd country out, So that kind of thinking is coming. It's not because I'm no more there. I'm thinking about what is best for the country. And in addition to that,
yes,
the issue of election of DCEs, I think we need to bring it back so as to reduce the pressure on MPs.
Members of Parliament.
The kind of pressure we go through is not easy. But I think that it should be brought back and there should be consensus on this. and DCs need to be elected. They need to be more accountable to their people. The state of the assemblies right now, look, there's a lot which could be done better.
Let's go back to Parliament. We've got Joseph Opoku back on the line, and it's a story about the House passing the first ever private members' bill. Hello, Joseph. Tell us more about this bill.
At 2004, Bennett, and this new bill, which is doing the amendment, will prescribe various sanctions when it comes to acts of dangerous driving involving the death of unborn babies. So with regards to the current Road Traffic Act, when a driver drives recklessly and causes death to a pregnant woman, that individual can be prosecuted based on the death of just the pregnant woman. But this amendment will mean that beyond the prosecution for the death of the pregnant woman, the prosecution can add charges that will have to do with getting justice for the unborn baby who is in the belly of the pregnant woman. And so this is actually a bill that's sponsored jointly by 4 MPs, the Kumbungu MP Ras Mubarak, the Offensive South MP Ben Abdallah, the Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, and the Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu. It's expected to be quite historic. Professor Michael Kwe, the Speaker, has repeatedly said MPs should be able to propose bills and get it passed without coming from the executive. And it looks like in the dying minutes of this 7th Parliament, they would want to get that achieved before the 8th Parliament.
So the House is expected to go on break next week, Joseph. What's on the agenda between now and then? Hello, Joseph?
Dennis, I can hear you now.
Yes, I'm asking you to tell us what the agenda will be for the House as it's expected to go on break next week, Tuesday.
And so there are a number of things they're hoping to do. Apart from the Road Traffic Amendment Bill, they will be dealing with the National Blood Service Bill, which will end up setting up a whole organization to handle issues of blood donation and blood dispersing. There is also the Insurance Bill, which is very much on the agenda that the House is trying to get out. There is one other controversial item having to do with the ex-gratia of MPs, as well as the President delivering his State of the Nation address, the final one to Parliament, which the House will not deal with until they return from the Christmas break on the 4th of January, before the House eventually dissolves on the 5th of January.
Right, that's Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku there. Away from Parliament, the increase of potholes on Ghana's roads is a worrying trend as newly constructed roads degenerate after pressure. Over a short period, scientists at the Building and Road Research Institute of the CSIR say good maintenance culture is the way forward to a sustainable road system. Emmanuel Osei has more in this report.
Some roads constructed in Ghana often deteriorate long before their lifespan. The poor maintenance culture has been identified as a contributory factor to the quick splint of roads constructed. A principal research scientist at Building and Road Research Institute, Professor Francis Afuka, says sustainable road maintenance systems need to be instituted to help save the roads and lives.
As soon as roads are open to traffic, they are subjected to serious stresses due to heavy loading coming from articulated trucks. And so every road that is being developed should have a maintenance plan, and that should start from day one. This should be done in such a way that as soon as cracks and minor potholes start developing, these things are then quickly patched. Because if they are not patched and then water seeps into the base of the road, then serious potholes are developed over time. But you know the situation in Ghana where we brag ourselves as people without any maintenance culture. That has been the bane.
The maintenance of most roads in Kumasi and its environs has been low. A sharply constructed road is bound to deplete over a short period.
The killer potholes here in Aloga Junction in the Tech Edum Highway in Kumasi has been fixed, but the state of the road is still not the best. Concerns have been raised on how this can cause accidents and create chaos on our streets.
According to Professor Afuka, community-led patching of roads should not be entertained as the practice can lead to further depletion.
We've got to understand the pothole patching technology. Normally, you have to remove the loose materials from it, cut it to shape, and then you compact any fresh material that you bring it on it. But here we see the local people or the residents bringing in material from outside. They don't even ram it or they don't compact it. So when vehicles come on it, it becomes, it loosens up and it becomes worse. Because the whole thing is to prevent water from getting into the base of the road. And once they don't do it, the material that comes on it, gets soaked up, and then water continues to seep into the existing thing, and so the whole thing worsens.
Reporting for JoyNews, Emmanuel Osei, Kumasi.
This is News Today with me, Bernice Abubedulansa. Coming up shortly in business, we'll be looking at the craze for toys as Christmas approaches. We take you to the Kumasi Central Market. Daryl Kwao has all the details shortly. Do stay.
Good afternoon, welcome to business. Just a week to Christmas. Toy guns, water pistols, dolls, and race cars are among fancy items featuring high on the shopping list of parents ahead of the festivity. Now, toys that are popular during the festive season are referred to as must-have toys. They give comfort to people of all ages to enjoy the Yuletide. In this report, Mona Lisa Frimpong observes how traders in Kumasi are cashing in on demand for the toys.
Must-have toys have flooded the markets ahead of Christmas. Parents are busy buying at various toy stands in the central business district of Kumasi. Obaya Foriwa is a trader at the KTTR market. She says the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the importation of the Christmas toys, but sales have been good. Children are known to be fascinated by the colorful blinks of the toys. Surprisingly, older folks are gradually showing interest in these remote-controlled toys. It has become a hobby for fun and relaxation. Linda Prempe, a parent, tells of the thrill it brings her 22-year-old daughter and 18-year-old son.
Some back 20 years, them man so 22 years. O fiance or penin or a founder, or banaso years. Wapila, timid fishy, quani, ball, you can ask me, Shimichra, Mr. City, say, ball, minching mountain. Nami chimney say, one with me, I told me, you say, I'm the champion, and say, one man need to meet you, sir, no Mabusam say. No Mabusam say, Eddie and Tina, yes, the match almost a witching me say, no me as well. It's one with Mr. Sanadia and Nana and Son and I,
Akosia Apia and her 11-year-old daughter sell toys at the Kumasi Central Market. She expresses delight at the sales recorded before and after the elections. She is hopeful there will be a boom in sales in the next few days to Christmas. Many traders have switched from selling their usual wares. This, they say, is the most lucrative season to sell the must-have toys. Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
Toys must have on your shopping list this weekend ahead of Christmas. Let's turn to some other news. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC, and Invest for Jobs, an initiative of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, have signed an agreement to mobilize investments and promote growth of enterprises. The cooperation will address investment promotion challenges reinforced by the COVID-19 pandemic to help maintain and create new jobs in Ghana. Here's Chief Executive of the GIPC, Yofi Grant.
This particular contribution, financial contribution, facilitated by GIZ, is the amount of 762,300 euros. And it goes to actually facilitate some specific areas. I mean, we've already received 390,000, and it's in a bank account, and we are using it for various initiatives, specific initiatives. We believe strongly that our critical key focal areas, especially under the SDGs, is SDG 1 and SDG 17, the first and the last. Now, SDG 1, of course, is about poverty alleviation and poverty eradication. And that can only be facilitated when we energize and strengthen the SME sector. Now, SDG 17, on the other hand, is about partnership and linkages. So we believe that to cover from 1 to 17 means that we have to focus on 1 and 17, and that will bridge the gap significantly. So we are also particularly delighted about that. But we also recognize that Ghana and Germany had a compact with Africa arrangement where we had many initiatives coming out of that. And I'm delighted to say one of the developments that came out of that is today we are actually assembling VW cars in Ghana. There are other initiatives with Bosch, with Siemens, and many other German companies that have come out of the compact with Africa, especially in the energy side. And so we are very happy that we've taken one step further, and now we are actually looking at job creation in the SME sector, which is a very, very important part for our economy.
All right, and that's it for business. There's more coming up at the top of the hour. Up next, sports with Oreku Ampofo. Stay tuned.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the sports segment with me, Oreku Ampofo. The big story coming in today in the Ghana Premier League has to do with the Asante Kotoko, and they have sacked their head coach, Maxwell Kunedu, following their first defeat of the season at the hands of Great Olympics, which happened yesterday. The Porcupine Warriors failed to impress as they lost 1-0 in the Ghana Premier League outstanding fixture in Accra. An assistant coach of the side, Johnson Smith, will take charge of the team on an interim basis whilst the club decide on a replacement. So that's the message from Asante Kotoko, and it's a club notice. It says the management of the Asante Kotoko Sporting Club wishes to inform the general public that it has decided to part ways with Coach Maxwell Kunedu as its head coach with immediate effect. Coach Johnson Smith has been appointed to lead the team in the interim. And there's a nice picture of the club thanking Maxwell Kunedu. But that wasn't Maxwell Kunedu's first stint with Asante Kotoko. He was with the club in 2011-2012, and during that time, he managed 30 games, winning 18 of them, drawing 9, losing 3 with a 60% win rate, scoring 43 goals, and then he conceded 18 goals, averaging 2.1 points per game. If you remember, that season, Asante Kotoko blew everyone away, winning the league by an astonishing 14 points over Ashgold. But then you look at his second stint, which started just last December, and this has to do with league matches only. And out of the 18 games, he's won 8, drawn 6, losing 4. And this is pretty low in terms of a win rate, and that's 44.4% compared to the 60% win rate in his first stint. And then 17 goals were scored, 10 goals conceded so far, and there's a massive drop in terms of points per game, which now drops to 1.67.